So here with Granulator, I'm going to unfreeze. I'll explain what freeze is in more detail in a second. So I've just created that cool audio file, right? So I want to do that again. And this time I'm going to do it with the metronome so I can do it in kind of a rhythmically relevant way. So what I've got now is a bunch of MIDI, right? So also got all this stuff over here that I recorded earlier. So the cool thing about this is I could do this a few different ways, but the way I find easiest is just to control click and click on freeze track. How many of you do not know what freeze track is? It's okay if you don't. Cool. So freezing track, the analogy I'll give you is you're organizing a bunch of stuff, making a collage on a table, right? Various magazine clippings, internet printouts, etc. Freezing a track is taking a picture of it, right? It's just as good as the original thing. The layers are gone, right? So the cool thing about the way Ableton does frozen tracks is it allows frozen tracks to be in multiple states at the same time. And what I mean by that, so I freeze this track. It is going to render everything that is going on this track, plus all the plugins and the whole audio flow, all of it, into an audio file. And then when I play the track again, it's going to play that audio file from the hard drive, right? But the cool thing is it's still editable. So I can still go, even though when I play this, it's just going to be running an audio file off the hard drive, right? Not in real time. I can actually take things and edit them and repeat them and duplicate them and change them around, right? I don't know of another program that lets you manipulate freeze files like that. So that's really useful. For example, I have a high quality drum sampler that I'm using or something for my whole track, and I realize that it's taking too much CPU, freeze the whole thing, and then I realize I don't want drums in my breakdown, right? Well, you can just go in, click on the parts you don't want, hit 0 to deactivate, and they are now deactivated. So it's actually really cool. There's tracks I'll finish where everything is frozen, right? And that's just, the track's just done at that point. So, oh my, how time flies. So let's try something. Did that answer your question about the, oh, I haven't turned it into audio yet. So that being said, let's turn this into audio. So I do this all the time with external devices, Granulator, all kinds of stuff. You can either take the frozen content and option drag it to an audio track, and that will just give you the audio file that's playing under it, right? Or you can do another function called flatten, or just inadvertently delete your track or duplicate it. I really need to talk to Ableton about making their menu the thing that pops up right under my mouse like that. If I hit flatten, I'll now end up with that same content, but replacing the original track. That distinction makes sense? So I lose the plugins, I lose the instrument, right? So as you can see, Granulator is a really awesome way to generate a lot of content out of a very small amount of things in a very short amount of time. So let's try going to our blank Granulator over here that should have nothing in it. Very cool. And I'll walk you through some of the functionality here. So I'm going to play some of these clips, and then you can tell me what you would like me to use. We already used this one, so I'm going to deactivate it. Orchestra tuning. A synth. There's me again. Oh, that's loud. Be there. I'm going to pick one if you don't. That one. It's kind of hard to get away from how awesome Bob James is, so that works for me. Oh, in fact, do I have it loaded here already? Cool. Well, this will be interesting. I've already got one loaded here, but I'm going to leave that alone for now and do it again, and we can see kind of how the different, me doing it a couple months ago and me doing it now differ. But it's really easy to get a ton of cool content. So we'll take our Bob James, we'll dump him over here in our blank Granulator, and we will have some fun. I would very much like the drop sample here. Cool. So here we are. Looks like it's the beginning bit, and then it goes into a little bit of a rhythmic part. Let's see what's going on here. Usually I'll start off by setting my grain size really large, really slow, right? So I have a nice big chunk of audio. And I'll play the root key a lot of the time just so it sounds like it did in the Finder. It doesn't sound like some... Right. I don't want any drums, so I'm going to stay away from that part. So there's 2 pages to Granulator.
What's the difference between the blue and the red on the waveform diagram?
I'm going to assume it's left-right information. That's my guess. Or frequency content. I'm honestly not sure. I can tell you that it does look different when the file's mono. Like you're not going to see as much color gradient. So I can increase or decrease the grain size. That's pretty cool. Now you'll notice that it feels very rhythmic, right? It's very obviously rhythmic, where the other stuff I was playing either kind of repeated like this didn't have that same quality, didn't have that repetition quality. I'm already sick of it, right? So part of the reason that those other looping samples didn't sound so repetitive is this thing called spray. And what spray does is spray arbitrarily changes the start point of the grain in a range of milliseconds. So as I increase this amount, it's basically randomizing the start point of the grain. This can turn into silly really fast, as you can see, right? Because my spray is now a 7-second range. That doesn't make sense. But if I just do it a little bit, it injects a little bit of randomness into the signal that I kind of like. And then, as I mentioned before, we have spike, which is going to create a rhythmic volume change. Pretty cool. But there's a whole other page to this. This is the kind of non-traditional programming page that is very specific for granular synthesis. But then I've got a more traditional synthesizer type page with amplifier envelopes, filter envelopes, 2 different filters, frequency modulation, etc. What I usually end up doing with this thing is using the obnoxiously long release time. It's also really easy for things to get really creepy really fast. What's that? Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure you could score a movie, like especially like a thriller with like 6 of these. Probably be good. So let's compare that to the other one I was just playing with, or the one I made last time I was playing with this particular sample. Not drastically different. You'll notice that the grain's moving around a lot, right? So the cool thing about Granulator is it will reward you for getting really nerdy with it and really diving in. And at the same time, you can just throw something in there and play it. Like it's not, you don't need to know what every single function does for it to actually be useful. Think of it as a way of turning something into a pad really quickly. Right? It doesn't matter what it is. Could be a snare drum, could be a vocal, anything. Just throw it in there, play it across the keys, give it a ridiculously long release time, and you've got yourself a pad, especially if you toss a reverb on the end of it.
Very much like to thank Pyramind for hosting me here once again. I think this institution is really cool, and until I came here for the first time, I had never seen anything like it in my whole life.
What I think really separates us from other people who teach is that we are outrageously passionate about what we do, and especially in electronic music.
Since coming to Pyramind, I've discovered electronic music, and San Francisco being a mecca for underground electronic music opened up so many doors for me and kind of blew my mind.
We cover everything from absinthe to contact. When people get to the mind-melting level, we get into modular synthesis.
Everything about native instruments, everything about Logic synths down to the finest detail. We learned it all.
The fundamentals of understanding how things work, that's just essential. But then beyond that, there's so much more, and that's where it gets into just a lot of the artistic side of like the creative approach of why you do something, not just how.
There's a lot of schools that just, they focus on the technicality of recording music, but I wanted something that would foster creativity and really help me develop as an artist as well.
Each of our genre-specific programs comes in 4 levels. There's a basic, an advanced, a professional, and then a master's level. And the master's level is, of course, everything we do. It's the largest and most powerful programs that we can create for you.